Welcome to Unbound American Stories, the channel where we uncover the lives of the extraordinary figures who shaped our nation, often from the shadows. These are the voices that history textbooks sometimes overlook, the rebels, thinkers, and visionaries who dared to challenge the status quo and change the course of America. Today's story is about the life of Dr. Charles Drew, a man whose accomplishments have changed healthcare, yet few have heard his story. The information in the video is based on AI-generated research and is designed to spark your curiosity. Think of it as the beginning of a conversation, not the final word. If you're conducting serious research or preparing work for publication, we encourage you to dig deeper into peer-reviewed academic and historical sources to confirm the facts. On to the story. Charles Drew, the scientist who defied blood and prejudice. Washington, D.C., 1904. The city was a place of contrasts, grand monuments to freedom standing tall against a backdrop of segregation and struggle. In the Foggy Bottom neighborhood, a baby boy named Charles Richard Drew took his first breath. His parents, Richard and Nora Drew, were determined that their son would grow up knowing more than just the weight of the world's limitations. They wanted him to know its possibilities. Charles was the oldest of 5 children, and from the start, he was different. While his siblings played, he watched. He asked questions: why the sky was blue, how the body healed, what made people sick. His mother, a teacher, nurtured his curiosity, filling their home with books and encouraging him to dream big. His father, a carpet layer, taught him the value of hard work. "The world won't hand you anything," Richard told his son. "You've got to take it." And take it, Charles did. By the time he was a teenager, Charles was a force of nature. He ran track at Dunbar High School, one of the best black public schools in the country, and his speed was legendary. But it wasn't just his legs that set him apart, it was his mind. He devoured books on science and medicine, his imagination alight with the idea of becoming a doctor. There was just one problem: money. College was expensive, and the Drews didn't have much. So, Charles did what he always did. He ran. He earned an athletic scholarship to Amherst College, where he became a star on the track and football teams. But sports were never the end goal. They were a means to an education, a way to prove that he belonged in a world that often told him he didn't. Amherst was tough. Charles was one of only a handful of black students, and he faced prejudice, both subtle and overt. But he refused to be defined by it. He graduated in 1926 with honors, his sights set on medical school. There was just one catch: no medical school in the U.S. would take him. At the time, many institutions outright barred black students. So, Charles did what he always did. He found another way. He took a job teaching biology and coaching sports at Morgan College in Baltimore, saving every penny he could. 2 years later, he applied to McGill University in Montreal, one of the few medical schools that accepted black students. He packed his bags and left for Canada, ready to prove himself. Medical school was harder than anything he had ever done. The hours were grueling, the workload relentless. But Charles thrived. He loved the challenge of solving puzzles, diagnosing diseases, understanding the human body, uncovering the secrets of life itself. By his 3rd year, he had caught the attention of Dr. John Beatty, a surgeon with a radical idea: what if blood could be stored? At the time, blood transfusions were a gamble. If a patient needed blood, a donor had to be found immediately. There was no way to preserve blood for later use. Dr. Beatty believed that could change, and he wanted Charles to help him prove it. Charles threw himself into the research. He spent nights in the lab, testing different methods of preserving plasma, the liquid part of blood that could be given to any patient, regardless of blood type. He discovered that by separating plasma from red blood cells and refrigerating it, he could keep it viable for days, even weeks. It was a breakthrough, one that could save countless lives. In 1933, Charles graduated from McGill with a Doctor of Medicine and Master of Surgery degree, becoming the first black surgeon to earn the latter. He completed his internship and residency at Montreal General Hospital, where he honed his skills as a surgeon and researcher. But his work on blood plasma was far from over. In 1938, Charles won a Rockefeller Fellowship to study at Columbia University in New York. The world was on the brink of war, and the need for a blood banking system had never been more urgent. Charles joined a team of researchers working on the problem, and he quickly became a leader in the field. His research focused on refining the process of preserving plasma. He developed a technique, later known as the Drew technique, that involved separating plasma from whole blood, drying it, and storing it in sterile containers. This method allowed plasma to be preserved for years, not just days or weeks. It was revolutionary. By 1940, Europe was engulfed in World War II. Thousands of soldiers were dying not just from bullets and bombs, but from blood loss. The British government turned to the United States for help, and Charles Drew was the man they trusted to lead the charge. He was appointed medical director of the Blood for Britain program, a massive effort to collect, process, and ship plasma overseas. Under his leadership, the program became a lifeline. Donors lined up by the hundreds. Plasma was collected, processed, and shipped across the Atlantic in record time. By the time the program ended in 1941, it had sent over 14,000 liters of plasma to Britain, plasma that saved tens of thousands of lives. But Charles wasn't satisfied. He knew the system could be even better. So, he turned his attention to the American Red Cross, which was struggling to create its own blood banking program. He became the first director of the Red Cross Blood Bank, setting up protocols that are still used today. He standardized collection methods, ensured proper storage, and trained a generation of technicians in the science of blood preservation. For the first time in history, blood was no longer a scarce, perishable resource. It was a lifeline. Charles Drew had changed the world, but there was one battle he couldn't seem to overcome: the battle against racism. In 1941, the U.S. military issued a directive that shocked the nation. Despite Charles's groundbreaking work, the military declared that blood from black donors could not be used for white soldiers. The policy was based on the false belief that blood could carry racial characteristics, a myth that had been debunked by science decades earlier. Charles was furious. He had spent his life proving that blood was blood, that it didn't care about the color of your skin. He resigned from the Red Cross in protest, refusing to be part of an organization that upheld such a policy. But the military's stance was more complicated than an outright ban. While blood was segregated by race, black donors were eventually allowed to contribute to a general pool for all soldiers. The Red Cross, however, still labeled blood by race, a practice Charles vehemently opposed. He returned to Howard University, where he had been teaching, and poured his energy into training the next generation of black doctors. He became the head of the Department of Surgery, and later the chief of surgery at Freedman's Hospital. Under his leadership, both institutions were transformed into world-class centers of medical excellence. Nearly half of all black surgeons in the U.S. during his tenure trained under him. But the fight took its toll. Charles was exhausted. He had spent years pushing against a system that refused to see him as an equal, a system that celebrated his genius while still treating him as a second-class citizen. He threw himself into his work, traveling the country to give lectures, mentor students, and advocate for racial equality in medicine. On April 1st, 1950, Charles Drew was driving to a conference in Alabama with 3 colleagues. He was tired, exhausted, really, but he had a speech to give, students to inspire. The car swerved off the road and flipped. Charles was rushed to the nearest hospital, but it was too late. He died that day at the age of 45. The news spread like wildfire. Tributes poured in from around the world. But perhaps the most poignant came from the soldiers whose lives he had saved, the patients who had received his plasma, the doctors who had learned from him. They didn't mourn him as a black scientist. They mourned him as a hero. Some accounts suggest that Charles received substandard care at the hospital where he was treated, a grim reminder of the racism he spent his life fighting. Whether or not that was true, his death was a loss the world couldn't afford. Today, Charles Drew's name is on hospitals, schools, and research centers across the country. His face has graced postage stamps. His story is taught in medical schools. But his greatest legacy isn't the buildings or the awards. It's the lives he saved. Millions of people have received blood transfusions because of what he discovered. Millions more have been inspired by his refusal to accept the world as it was. Charles Drew didn't just change medicine, he changed history. And his story isn't just about the past, it's about the future. It's a reminder that one person, armed with determination and a refusal to give up, can change the world. It's a call to keep fighting, keep questioning, and keep pushing forward, no matter the odds. Thank you for watching. Our goal at Unbound American Stories is to share the amazing stories of those that came before us but have been forgotten over time. We will tell their stories, focusing on not only their accomplishments, but on their lives and challenges they overcame to achieve greatness. If you enjoyed this episode and want to learn about other forgotten American heroes, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Who should we uncover next? Did we miss an important fact? Did we get something wrong? Do you know more about today's hero that you would like to share? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and until next time, keep the flame of curiosity alive.